So, with our project now installed, let's start by building the static layout of the application. And as always, let's start by getting the starter files, which in this case is just this CSS file. So of course that we don't have to write any styles ourselves. Then place that here into source. Now there will already be one, so just replace that. And since we're already here, we can get rid of all the junk that we don't need. So all of these. So in the end, we just have app.js, index.css, and index.js. Okay, then just renaming this here once again. And then let's drag and drop it onto the VS Code icon. Okay. So here we already have our files. As always, we need to clean this one here because we are importing some files that we no longer have, basically. But that's it. And once again, if you feel like it, you can actually delete all of this and write the code yourself just to practice how we can set up this React app from complete scratch. But I will just leave this here because in the end, when you build your own applications, you will always just leave this here as well. You're not always going to write everything from scratch. But here, I actually want to delete everything and start from scratch. So export default function app. So this is usually always the same as well here. So you always have your app parent component, which will include all the other components. And let's actually start with these other components. So just the components that we talked about in the previous lecture. So that's function logo. And now I will just quickly duplicate this code here just to make this a little bit faster. So packing list. And then we also have our stats. So these are the 4 big components that we identified in the last lecture. Remember that? And so let's now write a little bit of JSX for each of them, starting with the logo. So the logo is many times an image, but in this case, we will just have a primary heading and we will say far away. And then let's add some emoji here. Now the way we write emojis on the Mac is by hitting Control, Command, Spacebar. And on Windows, the shortcut is Windows plus period. So like this. So the Windows key and then plus this dot. All right. Then here let's use a palm tree. So this one here. And then a bag. Just like this. And in case you can't get these emojis to work, you can always just copy them from the final files of this project, or you can, of course, just ignore them as well. So these are just to make the design a little bit nicer. Okay, that's enough for the logo. So we will just write some very simple starter JSX here for each component as we are scaffolding basically this layout. So here let's just return a div with the class of add form. And again, you can of course explore this CSS file and see all the CSS that I wrote for these class names that we are going to import here. So in here later we will have these form elements like the select box, the input box, and that button. But for now we will just write the text. So what do you need for your trip? And here we also had some emoji. Let's add that as well. And it's actually already down here. Okay. And notice how ESLint is complaining that we are not using these variables here. But of course, we will do that soon by including all of them here in the global parent component. So here in this app. But again, let's leave that for later. So we do that in the end. For now, we just write the static part of all the components. and this one is the list. So again, just like a placeholder there. And let's make this one here a footer element. So remember how this stats is really at the bottom of the page, and so a footer seems like a good fit here. So let's write you have, and then here in the end we will have a number. So let's just use an X for now, items on your list, and you already packed, and then again an X, which is X% of the total. Then here we also had some emoji, like this other bag here. And yeah, I think this one was also formatted. So let's use emphasize here. So EM. And now with that, let's come here to our app component and use all of them here in our layout. And if you want, you can actually pause the video here and do that as a challenge. So just create one div element with the class of app and then include the 4 components in there if you'd like. So this is how you do that. So with the class of app, and then one by one, one after the other, we just include them here. So first the logo, then the form. So actually exactly in the way that we define them in our code. And by the way, in more real apps, and also a bit later in the course, we will start placing each of these components here into one individual file. So we will then have one file called app.js for this component, one called logo.js for this one, and so on and so forth. But here, since we are still learning, I think it's easier to build all of them here in the same file, because otherwise we are jumping around all the times through these files. And so that then makes everything a lot more confusing, especially when we get into topics such as child-to-parent communication. But yeah, more about that very soon. So to finish the stats, and that's it. So no component is yellow here anymore, and so that means that we didn't forget any. And yeah, with this we are done. So let's open up our integrated terminal like this, and we are already in the correct folder. So npm start. And let's wait for it. Beautiful. Well, here it seems we missed some class. Let's make this smaller again. All right. And so this footer here needs the class of stats. Yeah, wonderful. So this is what it's supposed to look like, and it looks exactly like our demo. Well, except, of course, for these details right here, which we will take care of starting in the next lecture. So next up, we will start rendering some static items here. So we will not yet dynamically add new items to the list, but we will render some static items from an array here in the UI.